Clemson expected to own the ACC again and compete for a national championship, but the offensive line must do better than in 2020. We got Ryan Cantor on the line from TigerNet to help us break down the trenches with the Tigers in camp. All right, Ryan, let's look at the offensive line. And I would say that this is a conversation we've had a few times through the years. Certainly, the recruiting's been exceptional everywhere, but if there's been a spot where it's maybe been a notch lower than the other positional units on both sides of the ball, it's probably been offensive line. You lose Jackson Carman, who was an outstanding five-star recruit coming out of high school. He will earn a paycheck in the NFL, but didn't necessarily become the dominant force at left tackle that he could have been. And just overall, the offensive line, when you're dominating teams week to week, it doesn't show up. But then when you face an Ohio State, it was definitely the glaring difference between the two teams.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I think the first Notre Dame game as well, it really stood out. Clemson struggled to run the ball, and I think we all know it's not because they lacked talent at running back, where they were deep and had Travis Etienne, one of the 2 or 3 best running backs in the country. So, it's an area for improvement. They only ranked 83rd, or the interior line only ranked 83rd in run blocking. So it's an area where they could get better. But I think, despite losing Jackson Carman, as you mentioned, as well as Cade Stewart, who was the starting center, I think they're primed to get better. Walker Parks was a true freshman last year. Didn't start, but when he did get into the game, you didn't notice him, which is a good thing. He was rock solid. I think he could immediately ascend to a starting left tackle, or if they want to swap it and put him at right tackle. I'm very optimistic about Walker Parks. Jordan Mcfadden, the right tackle from last season, he was actually Clemson's best offensive lineman per PFF rankings. Another guy you didn't notice because he didn't make many mistakes. So I think the Tigers should be solid once again at tackle. And on the interior, they have Will Putnam, who was good in pass blocking. He was a big recruit, was supposed to go to Florida State in that same class that Sam Howell, the quarterback, was supposed to go to Florida State. And that recruiting class sort of fell apart for the Seminoles. So big recruit. I think he's not. He's back. I think we're going to see progress from him. And then at the other positions, just the more experience, as well as having some great recruits coming in this year to push them, I think Clemson should be better on the offensive line. They're traditionally very good at pass blocking, and they were quite good at pass protection, pass blocking this past season. But where the improvement needs to be is in run blocking. I think we see that. What the question really is will they improve to the point where this is a national championship caliber team or not? So I think that's probably the biggest question as we enter the season.
And to your point about it showing up statistically beyond just the advanced metrics, as you pointed out, but in yards per carry, Travis Etienne was vying for the best mark in the history of college football going into his senior season, and then he drops all the way to 5.4 when he was in that stratosphere of close to 8 yards per carry for his career, and that's not Travis Etienne becoming a worse running back. That is some of the issues that you pointed out. Lynn J. Dixon as well, during our running back video, you pointed out his numbers being much better in previous stints.
6.1 yards per carry to only 4.5 last year for Dixon, and I don't think it makes a ton of sense to say, well, he got worse. I think more likely it was struggles with the run blocking of the offensive line,
and especially with Etienne with a sample size of 400 or 500 carries.
Yeah,
no question about that. Ryan Cantor from TigerNet helping us break down Clemson football in the trenches. We talked offensive line. Now let's look at the defensive front. And it's been a dominant position there for 6, 7, 8 years. Certainly your thoughts about how it transitions from 20 to 21.
Yeah, so back on that 2018 national championship team, the Tigers had their best defensive line probably ever. One of the better ones in college football history. All the starters leave. Albert Huggins, the key reserve at tackle, leaves. So 2019 is obviously a transition year. 2020, they're expected to kind of maybe not get to 2018 levels, but kind of step back up. Some weird, unique, real 2020 things happened that I think held them back. Xavier Thomas, Justin Foster both struggled with COVID-19 and related kind of illnesses. Justin Foster actually just retired from football as a result, which is a pretty sad story, actually. But he's got some great career things ahead, so it's not all sad for him. But Xavier Thomas was held back as well. He played in the latter portion of the season, but I don't know that he would say it was 100%. And then before all that, Logan Rudolph, another defensive end, left football, graduated early, and I'm not sure that was anticipated. So Tigers had a lot to replace a defensive end. They relied on true freshman Miles Murphy, and he was great. He led the defensive line in sacks. But as a true freshman, you got to think, really thrown into the fire there. Should improve as a sophomore. They also relied a lot on Brian Bresee, another true freshman, won ACC Rookie of the Year honors. He was great, but again, should improve with experience. Then the player who I would say is perhaps the most important player on the defense is Tyler Davis. Just his impact on the run defense when he's in versus out is just, you don't necessarily notice him making plays every time, but the collective difference is tremendous. And he missed chunks of the year. But I think if he's back and plays a full season, it just makes a tremendous difference for this team.
Yeah, from the outside, it appeared as though Skalski was the big loss during the Notre Dame loss. But once I started to talk to guys like you, Tyler Davis's name came up as he was the huge loss out of the three in going to Notre Dame. And then we saw the huge difference, obviously, in the ACC championship game when Notre Dame couldn't score a touchdown until it was too late. Clemson along the defensive line. Yeah, you mentioned Murphy coming in with 10.5 tackles for loss and 4 sacks. Nice freshman year out of him. And Bresee, a guy that everybody was talking about as he entered college football, 6.5 tackles for loss and 4 sacks. Xavier Thomas, despite not big tackle numbers, got into the backfield a lot with 3.5 sacks as well. So past the starting unit, obviously the better teams in college football come at you at waves along the defensive front. How did the Tigers look?
Yeah, and the Tigers are a team that is especially known for coming at you with waves, like you said. And so we talked about 3 of the 4 starters, and I think that might be 3 of the best starters on the same line. That other defensive end opposite Miles Murphy, we have Xavier Thomas coming back. We talked about him and some of his struggles with health last year. He was a huge prospect. It feels like this is the time for the breakout season, but it's big. It's crucial. Last year, the Tigers sort of had some challenges at defensive end because of the weird COVID situation and whatnot. They need a big year from Xavier Thomas, or if not need, it would go a really long way. KJ Henry and Justin Maskell are back, but I think the upside of Thomas is really really appealing. And then they also had two other guys transfer: Jordan Williams, who transferred to Virginia Tech, Niles Pickney, who transferred to Minnesota. I'm confident that there's some young players. One guy that comes to mind is Rook or Hororo, a defensive tackle, but someone's going to have to step up. Several people will have to step up and fill that void. Tigers have Peyton Page coming in as a freshman. They've got the talent to do it, but I think the depth and the depth outside of those 3 sort of star players on that starting D line is where the questions are. That's where we'll see things unfold. But I think you look at the Tigers D line, you see 3 stars and a lot of guys who have an opportunity to step up. They just need a handful to do so.
There's sometimes that thought surrounding Clemson football because of the dominance in the conference since 2015 that we really don't know if this is vintage Clemson or just one of the top 5 teams in the country until near the end of the season going into a playoff. But Georgia out of the gate, game in Charlotte, I don't think there's any question. It's the premier non-conference game in college football, and that's going to tell us a whole lot along the trenches in particular against that kind of force.
Absolutely, yeah. The ACC has 3 teams inside the top 25 of the, really the top 10 of the SP Plus rankings, but Clemson is one of them, and they don't play Miami or North Carolina. So their ACC schedule will be teams that start off all in the 30th, in the 30s or worse in the ACC. But that's all outweighed because they start off with an elite opponent in Georgia, and I think it's going to be a phenomenal test. Georgia typically has a great offensive line and a great defense. So what a great test for this D line and for Clemson's offense under a new quarterback. I agree. I think it's certainly the best non-conference game of the year. Could be the best game, period.
Good stuff as always from Ryan Cantor from TigerNet. Encourage you to head on over there and check out his work and the rest of the staff there at TigerNet.